Welcome to Branco Enterprises Environmental, Health, and Safety Orientation. Environmental, Health, and Safety Program. Our primary objective is a health and safety culture that places employee safety as the pinnacle objective of job site success. Everyday Goal 1 is zero injuries, zero accidents. Incident and accident reporting. Employees and subcontractors shall report all personal injury accidents, first aids, property damage accidents, fires, spills, and near misses to the job site superintendent, verbally within 15 minutes, and a formal written report within 24 hours of each occurrence. All incidents will be investigated. Branco site safety policy includes compliance with OSHA standards, observance of all state and local laws, adherence to Branco policies, conformance to Branco policies, precedence given to the more stringent law or policy of Branco, OSHA, or the owner, participation in weekly toolbox talks. Competent person. One who is capable of identifying existing and predictable hazards in the surroundings or working conditions which are unsanitary, hazardous, or dangerous to employees, and who has authorization to take prompt corrective measures to eliminate them. Qualified person. They must have a recognized degree, certificate, etc., or extensive experience and ability to solve the subject problems at the worksite. Emergency situations. In the event of an emergency, please immediately notify the project superintendent, the project safety manager, or dial 911. This could be injury, fire or explosion, severe weather, civil disturbance, or bomb threat. Emergency situations. In the event of building evacuations, exit the building immediately via the identified exits. Proceed to one of the following. Mustering site will be outside the Branco office trailer. All subcontractors must have a roll call for their employees before the all clear is given. If an evacuation of the job site is necessary, all personnel will be required to muster at a predetermined location and remain until roll call is taken and the all clear is given. Hospital and urgent care. Emergency, to be determined according to job location. See posted information. Non-emergency, to be determined according to job location. Care provider locations will be posted on the job site bulletin board. Communication. Contractor and subcontractors will hold weekly toolbox talks and pre-planning talks at the beginning of each shift. Contractor and subcontractors shall maintain documentation and records of all personnel attending each meeting. Contractor and subcontractors will participate in any special training or retraining as needed. Contractor and subcontractors will submit reports as outlined in the Environmental, Health, and Safety Manual. Coordinate work with other crafts and those working near you. Health and safety rules. Branco intends to provide a drug-free and alcohol-free work environment for all workplace employees. The use, possession, transportation, solicitation, or sale of alcohol, drugs, or any controlled substance is strictly prohibited. All forms of tobacco, smoke and smokeless, e-cigarettes, and water vapors are prohibited on certain job sites. Check for specific requirements of the job site. Tobacco use is prohibited on this job site. Weapons are prohibited on site and in private vehicles. Horseplay causes accidents and will not be tolerated. Job site speed limit. The speed limit for all vehicles and equipment is 10 miles per hour on the job site. Vehicle safety. All mobile equipment must be turned off when equipment is left unattended. Buckets, forks, etc. must be placed on the ground. Seatbelts must be used while operating all vehicles or equipment if so equipped. Operators shall not use personal radios, cell phones, or other devices that may be a distraction while operating or driving. Operators must be properly trained and authorized, certified to operate by their company per OSHA requirements. Vehicle safety. All mobile equipment must be inspected daily. Report must be with equipment. Sound horn when traveling on site, when approaching others, and at all intersections. Cranes must have a walk-along spotter when tracking. Pedestrians must make eye contact with operator of vehicle or equipment before approaching equipment. Maintain a safe distance from moving equipment. Housekeeping. Work areas and walkways must be kept clean and clear of obstructions. Eliminate slips, trips, and fall hazards. Electrical panels, fire extinguishers, and designated exits must be maintained clear. Run cords, hoses, leads overhead. Please take the time to get them up. Supplies, materials, tools, scrapped must be organized, properly stacked or contained. Barricade tape must be removed when there is no longer a hazard. Trash must be picked up and maintained as you go. Dispose of trash in proper containers. Obligation policy. No employee is under any contractual or occupational obligation to attempt any type of rescue, perform any type of first aid, CPR procedure, or firefighting efforts, or place herself in harm's way for any reason. Anyone who makes such an attempt is doing so on his or her own accord as a good Samaritan and will be applauded. First aid. Branco strives to provide safety equipment necessary to create working conditions that will promote a safe and accident-free workplace. First aid kits are available at the office or job trailer. All items used from first aid kit must be maintained. No employee is under any occupational obligation to render first aid to another person or employee. Chemical approval and disposal. Chemicals are not to be brought on site without prior approval and must have proper SDS sheet. Trailers and vehicles may be inspected for chemicals before being brought on site. Chemicals and hazardous materials are not to be disposed of in trash containers or in drains. All generated waste must be separated and collected in designated containers, drums, or barrels with appropriate waste labels. Branco shall not be responsible for waste generated by other trades. Workplace harassment. Site policy states, our intent is to maintain a workplace free from insult, intimidation, or harassment due to race, color, religion, sex, age, or national origin. See manual for full policy and disciplinary action. Government inspections. If a government compliance officer wishes to conduct a safety inspection of the contractor's personnel and equipment or any of its subcontractors' personnel and equipment, site personnel shall immediately notify the project superintendent and obtain his approval before permitting the inspection to begin. Media and the job site. Branco policy states that all employees refrain from conversation with the media. Branco Project Management will appoint a representative to engage with the media. Visitor policy. All visitors must report to the Branco site office. Visitors entering the construction areas must wear a hard hat, safety glasses, and safety-toe boots and comply with all PPE requirements. Skirts and jackets must be buttoned or zipped. Shorts, skirts, and dresses are prohibited in the work areas. No loose hair or dangling jewelry that can cause entanglement issues. Visitor policy. Young children less than 18 years of age are prohibited on site without permission and supervision. Please inform Branco prior to a visit visit if there is anyone physically handicapped so we can make reasonable accommodations. Falls. Falls are the leading cause of serious injury and fatalities in the construction industry. All employees will receive training prior to utilizing any type of personal fall protection. Electrocution. All electrical work will be done by qualified and certified electricians. Extension cords will be equipped with OSHA standard 3-prong plugs. Ground fault circuit interrupters will always be used. Struck by. Be aware of moving equipment and make sure the operator knows you are in the vicinity. Be aware of overhead work. Make sure the area is barricaded. Wear appropriate personal protection equipment at all times and additional PPE when required. Caught in, caught between. First step, address all job hazards with proper planning and communication. Watch for pinch points on equipment and material loads. Adequately bench or shore all excavations. Lock out, and lock, tag, try must be implemented before working on any equipment. Required personal protective equipment. Hard hats. Hard hats are always mandatory for everyone on all job sites. Visitors and delivery drivers must wear a hard hat if entering the job site or outside vehicle. Bill must be worn forward unless hard hat is designed with a reversible suspension. Ball caps are not allowed to be worn under hard hats. Safety glasses, goggles, and face shields. Safety glasses must conform to ANSI Z87 Plus with permanent top and side shields. Prescription glasses must also conform to ANSI Z87 Plus and have side shields. Clear, amber, or indoor/outdoor designated safety glasses only are required inside buildings. Some situations may require a combination of safety glasses with goggles or goggles and/or safety glasses with face shields. This includes all types of abrasive cutting with a quickie saw, grinder, etc. Face shields shall be worn with a hard hat with safety glasses or goggles underneath. Gloves. Gloves are recommended but not required unless certain tasks require them for PPE. Gloves offer a layer of protection when used appropriately for the specific task. Gloves are required when an owner or contractor deems them as part of their safety requirements. High visibility clothing. Safety yellow, green, or orange vests or t-shirts is recommended but not required to identify contractor personnel. Faded and worn out high-vis workwear must be replaced. This requirement varies by owner, contractor, and regulations. Shirts. Shirts shall be worn at all times and must cover 4 inches below the shoulders. T-shirts with sleeves cut off are prohibited. Tank tops, sleeveless, or single strap type shirts are prohibited. When performing hot work, appropriate long sleeves must be worn. Pants. Trouser or pant legs must extend to the shoe tops. Torn or ripped clothing is not allowed. Shorts are prohibited. Shoes. Safety toe boots, steel or composite, must meet ANSI Z41 1/75 C/75 standards and must be worn at all times. This includes any rubber boots worn on the job site. Metatarsal guards, foot shields, must be worn for any job where injury may occur to the top of the foot. For example, high pressure water blasting, jackhammering, operation of a pavement compactor, etc. When performing specific electrical work, electrical rated boots are required. Soft-soled shoes, cloth shoes, running, tennis, street, or athletic shoes, and sandals are not permitted on Branco job sites. Hearing protection. Hearing protection shall be worn by all personnel working in areas posted as requiring such protection, where directed by the project superintendent or where required by the work. Respiratory protection. Respiratory protection shall be worn by all personnel working in areas posted as requiring such protection, where directed or where required by the work. Proper training is required before wearing a respirator. Fall arrest. Fall arrest shall be used in all work areas with an unguarded falling hazard of 6 feet or more. Examples of such areas within 6 feet of leading edge are excavations, open-sided scaffolding, open-sided doors, floor openings, roof edges, skylight openings, steel erection, overhead ductwork, high conduit and wiring, painting of structures, cleaning of trusses, and pipe rack work. Fall arrest is also required when working in aerial lifts of any type. In addition, fall arrest will be used in all work areas with an unguarded falling hazard at any height above dangerous conditions such as vertical protruding rebar, chemical pits, and high voltage electrical wires. Falling object protection. Where elevated work is in progress, signs, barricades, barrier tapes, and other warnings or entry restriction devices shall be installed by the contractor performing the work to keep the area below clear of personnel. If work is required in the area below the elevated work area, it should be scheduled at a time separate from the elevated work. Where a lift is made over a work area, the area below the path of the lift shall be cleared of personnel during the lift and guarded to prevent persons from entering that area. Other protective gear. Other protective gear will be provided and used when required by the contractor, by the owner's rules, by law or regulation, when its use is indicated by prudent work safety practices. Construction tools and equipment rules. Training. All contractor personnel shall be properly trained in the use and operation of all contractor-furnished tools, equipment, and supplies. Safety devices. Safety devices and guards on tools and equipment shall be functional and always used. Tools found to be missing safety guards will be deemed unsafe and removed from service. Grounding. Electrical tools and equipment shall be either grounded or double insulated. Ground fault interruption protection shall be used at all times. Cables and cords shall be inspected before use and maintained in a safe condition. Condition. Construction tools and equipment shall be maintained in a safe operating condition. Riding. Riding on construction equipments, forklifts, or other vehicles shall not be permitted unless such vehicles are equipped with passenger seats. Work structures. Structures such as scaffolding, work platforms, ladders, stairways, handrails, and the like shall be constructed and maintained in strict compliance with manufacturer's instructions and applicable laws, codes, and regulations. Ladder and safety maintenance. Visual inspection of all ladders is required before use. All ladders will be physically inspected and documented on a monthly basis. There are inspection forms for this. Each ladder will need to have a system of identification, number, name, etc. to correspond with the inspection form. These are completed by each contractor and subcontractor. Ladders will be marked with a colored tape system, same as electrical cords. Only fiberglass ladders are allowed on the job site. Remove any damaged ladder and place out of service immediately. Ladder inspection form. This is an example of a ladder inspection form. These must be filled out monthly and turned in to the safety inspection manager. Ladder and cord inspection code. The following is a list of codes for each monthly inspection. Please use the correct corresponding color for each monthly inspection. Scaffold safety. All scaffolding shall be erected according to OSHA standards. All scaffolding will be erected under the supervision of a competent person. Cranes and rigging. Only certified persons may operate cranes. Cranes must be properly barricaded to prevent entry into the swing radius of the crane. Areas beneath the load travel paths must be addressed prior to picks being made, and entry into this area identified are prohibited. Cranes and rigging continued. Properly securing any load with appropriate rigging is crucial to any lifting being done by machinery at the job site. If the rigging fails, the result can cause serious injury or even death. Before any load is lifted, all components of the rigging hardware shall be evaluated by a qualified person. Lockout, tagout applies to all types and sources of energy. Control the potential for the release of energy sources. This site is a one employee, one lock site. A tag or label must be attached to every personal lock. Training standards comply with OSHA 1910.147. Documentation of training is required. Locks need to be removed at the end of shift. The abandoned lock procedure shall be implemented if lock is not removed at the end of shift. This requires an abandoned lock form to be completed. Inspection performed of contractors' group lockout process and procedures. Confined space. Permit required confined spaces. Area large enough or so configured that a person can either put any body part or enter the space to perform work. Limited means of entry or exit. Space is not designed for continuous human occupancy. Hazardous atmosphere, engulfment, or any other serious hazard must be considered. Documented employee training for all, entrance and attendance. Confined space continued. A designated competent person will issue all confined space permits. Permit must be returned when work is complete for that shift. Gas monitoring equipment requirements. Proof of calibration and bump check before each use. Must provide continuous monitoring. A 4-gas meter monitor is required. Do not take compressed gas cylinders into confined spaces. Keep ventilation and fire watch in place, especially with hot work. Remove cutting torches from the space when not in use. Excavations. All excavations 4 feet or deeper will be protected by proper shoring or benching. Adequate physical barrier protection shall be in place at all unattended excavations. Special considerations for confined space, hazardous atmosphere, exposure to falling objects, benching and sloping, exposure to traffic, adjacent structures, leading edge fall protection, water in excavation. Daily inspection required before each shift or after any weather event. SDS, MSDS sheets. SDS, MSDS sheets are available to all employees at all times. Employees will be notified anytime there's a possibility of being exposed to hazardous chemical. Be familiar with all chemicals or materials you are using. Any incident of overexposure or spill of a hazardous chemical substance must be reported to the project superintendent. Subcontractors must report any hazardous chemical to that may affect other trades. Hazardous material storage. The contractor shall ensure that storage of hazardous materials on the job site shall meet the following minimum requirements. Storage locations and quantities shall be approved by the project superintendent. Hazardous materials shall be stored on solid bases. Solid bases shall include, but not be limited to, compacted earth, pallets, concrete or asphalt platforms, or paving. Hazardous materials shall be stored, stacked, or secured to prevent toppling, spillage, or unintended dislodgement. Hazardous material containers shall be placed so that labels and legends can always be read by an observer. Hazardous material storage continued. Compressed gas cylinders shall be stored and secured in the upright position at safe distances from or shielded from welding and cutting operations. Compressed gas cylinders in a storage shall be shut off and torches, hose, and manifolds removed and capped. Cylinders shall be periodically checked for leakage. Hazardous material which, if brought in contact with each other, could react to pose an equal or greater hazard than either material stored alone, shall be stored and not less than 20 feet apart. Alternatively, such hazardous materials shall be separated by an impervious barrier, the height of which shall be equal to or exceed the greatest storage height of the materials. Hazardous material storage continued. Warning signs shall be posted and maintained in a legible condition at all access points to hazardous material storage areas. Warning signs shall clearly define the specific hazardous nature of the stored materials, for example, corrosive, flammable, oxidizer, explosive, compressed gas, or other specific hazardous nature. The contractor shall inspect its and its subcontractors' hazardous material storage at least once weekly. The contractor shall immediately correct hazardous materials storage deficiencies. Hazardous materials storage continued. Gasoline and diesel fuel are to be transported and stored in approved and appropriately labeled containers. Do not store fuel containers inside enclosed job trailers or buildings. A fuel storage cabinet will be used for storage of fuel cans. Fire protection. Comply with the owner's fire regulations, warning signals, and procedures. Coordinate work requiring interruptions of the owner's fire protection system with the project superintendent prior to commencing such work. The contractor shall use appropriate valve operating procedures whenever the fire protection system valves must be opened or closed. Fire protection continued. Firefighting. You do not have an employment obligation to fight any structural fire. Firefighting, rescue, or medical duties will be performed by professionals. If the need arises and a fire extinguisher is utilized to fight a fire, use the pass, pull pin, aim at base, squeeze and sweep side to side method. Inspect all fire extinguishers monthly and verify on the inspection tag. Cutting, welding, hot work permits. The contractor or subcontractor shall request cutting, welding, hot work permits prior to performing operations involving electric or gas welding, gas cutting or burning, or any other operation involving heating, open flames, sparks, or electric arcs with approval of project superintendent. Cutting, welding, hot work permits shall be valid for no longer than one work shift unless otherwise approved by the project superintendent. Permits may be issued on other permit forms approved by the project superintendent. Cutting, welding, hot work permits shall be required in all job site areas except for those areas specifically approved by the project safety manager as welding, shop, or maintenance areas. Cutting, welding, hot work permits continued. Identify combustible materials including paper and cardboard in the work area. Combustible materials should either be moved at least 35 feet away from the flame or arc or must be protected in place. Protect wall and floor openings to keep out sparks. Determine that flammable liquids and vapors are not present. Determine that hose systems, if any, are functional. If sprinkler and hose systems are not functional, the contractor shall obtain permission from the project superintendent before proceeding with the work. Ensure adequate ventilation for welders by means of natural air movement, local exhaust ventilators, or airline respirators as required by local conditions. Cutting, welding, hot work permits continued. Establish a fire watch with fully loaded fire extinguishers of suitable type and/or charged water hoses. Require the welder's supervisor to sign a cutting, welding, hot work permit. Maintain a fire watch throughout the operation for a minimum of 30 minutes following a completion of the operation. This shall be extended if the work area warrants longer. At the end of the 30-minute period, inspect the work area for sparks and flame. Additional fire watch may be required based on the nature and location of the hot work. Require the welder to sign the cutting, welding, hot work permit to certify safe completion of the operation. Submit the cutting, welding, hot work permit to the project superintendent. Daily procedures. This can include task planning, equipment inspections, permitting process, including hot work permit, confined space permit, and various other permits, and last, barricades identified for your work area. Cutting, welding, hot work permit forms. The following is an example of a hot work permit. The project safety manager must approve any other hot work permit forms. Confined space entry permit. The following must be used when entering a confined space. Excavating, concrete cutting, and drilling. Prior to excavating, cutting concrete, or drilling, the contractor or subcontractor shall plan, follow, and ensure that utility locates have been requested and marked. Determining if underground or embedded hazards are present prior to cutting or excavating is expected from the contractor or subcontractor. Each contractor or subcontractor is responsible for maintaining their own locates as required by law. Warning signage, barricade. Signs, barricades, barrier types, and other warning or entry restriction devices shall be provided whenever required by the work or when required by the project superintendent. The color, type of barricade shall be used based on the determining hazard. Barricades shall be tagged and maintained by the trade performing that work. Red was danger. Do not enter without authorization from the barricade owner. Yellow is caution. Check area for hazards prior to entry and proceed with caution. Disciplinary action. Any safety violation which may lead to serious injury or death will result in immediate removal from the site. Examples of this situation include, but are not limited to, the following: violation of fall protection greater than 6 feet, violation of confined space entry policy, violation of lockout tagout policy, crossing red barricade tape without authorization, and operation of equipment in an unsafe manner. Disciplinary action. The violation of any of the safety rules stated above and in the Environmental Health and Safety Manual will be cause for immediate disciplinary action up to and including discharge. Substance abuse testing. Pre-employment, post-accident, random drug testing will be utilized. Refusal of consent to taking tests will be grounds for removal from job site and termination of employment. Substance abuse testing continued. This site's substance abuse policy dictates mandatory substance abuse testing for any employee requiring medical treatment in a medical facility for a job-related injury or illness. Substance abuse testing will be required as outlined in the Environmental Safety and Health Manual. A positive test result will result in immediate termination of employment from this job site. Definitions to specific wordage can be found in the Environmental Safety and Health Manual. Hard hat labels. Upon successful completion of the project site safety orientation, a numbered hard hat label will be issued to you personally. This identifier can only be used by the person it has been assigned to. If you lose your number or replace your hard hat, you must get a replacement label before you will be allowed to work on site. Hard hat labels are not required on all job sites.